Octave Rising.
Woo! Yay! Welcome everybody. It is a beautiful Sunday in September, starting to feel that coolness in the fall here, and it's just really our favorite time of year, so that's fantastic. It's also a bit shocking that the summer's kind of drawing to a close. You know, sometimes I'm like, is it June? No, it's September, and yeah, very disorienting around time right now. I wanted to extend a welcome if anybody here has maybe tuned in after our event about the new Octave Hub the other day here in Taos. If so, thank you so much for coming to this space and checking out what we have to share. I wanted to maybe kind of continue on that thread a bit so that there's a degree of continuity. I also kind of, as a brief disclaimer, you know, a lot of the content that we share on here relies on certain baseline understandings or experiences. And so it can be a bit disorienting and can be really hard for the sort of the logical, rational mind to track. There's encodements in a lot of that information, like activations, different pieces of the puzzle. So sometimes maybe rather than trying to track everything mentally, you could, you know, if you're doing dishes or whatever, you know, just going about your morning to just kind of let it osmose and absorb into your field rather than necessarily having to understand the full framework and concept of everything that's being spoken about. And that may also apply today at times. But one of the things we're trying to do is to get better about kind of creating a little bit of context and reference points for the things that we're discussing, you know, and the things that inform our framework for how we view this world, this reality, the great dramas and cycles of that Earth has been through, is going through, and what lies ahead. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Zane, and I'm here with Justine, and we're super excited to share today.
And as Zane is mentioning, with this sort of suspension of disbelief, I invite you to feel into the material as we're speaking. As Zane said, it contains activations and encodements, and to really begin to drop out of the mental space and into the heart space. And it's not always about understanding all of the context, all of the vocabulary, all of the specific things, because we all feel that something is off in our world and that we have such a greater potential that we are stepping into as a species. And one quick example that I'll give of this is in the creation of my school, I started listening to Steiner content at the gentle prodding of Zane. And when I bring this up with people, it often comes up like, wow, the material is so high level, it's so dense, it's very cosmic, it brings in all of these things, it's really hard to comprehend with the mind. And what I experienced on the first lecture that I listened to on an audio recording was a complete physiological response where it felt like my cells were dancing. And when I sat down to begin writing curriculum, the material just moved through me. And it didn't matter if I fully understood the vocabulary that he uses or the specific imagery that he's bringing forth. Whatever came through was activated in my own system of knowing and being and comprehending within myself. And so really give yourself permission to fully just absorb into your being without getting caught in the mental body. And if there is something specific that comes up that you do have a question about, that's exciting to you or you're curious about, please feel free to let us know. Hey, I would love for you to give more context on this specific thing. I heard you use this word a lot or reference this a lot, and that helps us to provide that if there is something there.
Yeah, and maybe we could, if it's a big topic, maybe we could have a discussion, here on our little micro podcast and kind of unpack in the shacket, our new little office space, which we love so much. So that's where we're broadcasting from today. Yeah, so, picking up again on the thread of the hub, there's so many mechanical pieces to what we're trying to create in this world. And, all of that is coming down the line, and we're going to have to kind of, put on our big boy, big girl pants and move through a lot of, put on your boots, get in the muck, move through a lot of logistics and practical considerations, a lot of team building, interpersonal dynamics, a lot of, detailed financial planning, all of those things, they're coming down the line. But where we're at right now is with the energetic coalescence. And
Yeah, let's just take a quick moment to retroactively communicate what Zane means by the hub for anybody who's tuning in elsewhere and or wasn't present here the other evening. But the hub is this beautiful download that Zane got during a meditation at our home with an image that is on our website, either is coming in or is already there, depending on when you're tuning into this. And the center of the image is the grand emergence of self that comes through when you have your inner work and your inner transformation. You emerge into yourself. And as we emerge into ourselves in this moment for humanity, we step into the joy and inspiration of being a creator in a realm of creation that we get to materialize together and coalesce together, like Zane's talking about coalescing our field. And what he saw originally are these nodes of what we call the hub. And originally he had energy, agriculture, housing, and healing. And we've moved healing into the center because we found that that is the grand emergence of self. And we've added in education, of course, my arm twisting. And so this image represents this collective creative force that we envision for the town of Taos, where we live, as a blueprint worldwide. And there are already templates occurring worldwide of these communities rising up. This is not new. We're just here to bring it through and embrace the space to help cultivate it here for our town. And so when Zane mentions the hub, he's referring to this shared vision that all of these people have here and all over the world of creating these new community systems and structures that are based off of a regenerative model that supports life and inspiration and innovation and creativity and joy and everything good and fantastic.
As opposed to the as opposed to the current economy, which is everything counter to that. And I think it's kind of actually a bit of a cool story to share, because none of these things it doesn't make sense to take credit for any of this, right? Because none of it's really ours as individuals. Like, of course the ego wants to latch on and claim ownership of all of these things, but
that's my idea.
But that's not the reality. So I had this vision about a year ago, a little more than a year ago. It was previous summer. And as it kind of came into clarity, then I began to share it around really excitedly. And, now a year later, we've hosted this event to kind of share it with the broader community. And that's a really exciting moment for us. But somewhere in between last summer and now, I learned from Zelkia. So if you don't know Zelkia, she's the one who, her and Rhoda over in South Africa are the ones who brought in this transformative cleanse process that really underpins this entire podcast and our sharings and so much of
and our
the clarity
and joyfulness and stepping into ourselves and embracing ourselves and all of you.
And yeah, just really kind of in many ways, the origin point of this entire thread of inspiration and this new chapter that we're unpacking with the hub. But so I ended up, talking with Zelkia, and she starts sharing all of these documents from different initiatives. One called Leonardius, which is sort of like basically a crowdfunding platform to launch all these incredible initiatives around the world that are going to transform, human civilization, heal the planet, heal human beings, heal our ecosystems. And then she starts sharing like the nitty gritty, and it's like, oh, there's this vision for these communities of domes with these like starseed, like sacred geometry organizations, and each one has a garden, and it's like agroforestry and all these, and kind of down the line, like every single piece of this vision that I kind of thought was my own, I realized had been seeded. And that I was actually stepping into a container that was already very well established. And then as we've gone around and met more members of our community here in Taos, the amount of overlap, it's all like a Venn diagram, right? And it's incredible to see.
Maybe it's the flower of life.
Yeah, it's probably.
Of community overlapping.
And so flower, let's take the flower of life, right? Like, as a two-dimensional image, each of those little avenues, there's a little thread in there that's maybe an individual's attunement, and then it moves into overlap with all these other threads. And so that's a lot of circles superimposed in that Venn diagram. And that's where we find ourselves at, is we're in the middle of a community of beings who have already plugged in so many of these pieces. And it's now time to remind us that this is part of a greater tapestry or a greater creation that we're all plugging into and synthesizing into something that is a single coherent framework for what we're building here, what many have called the new earth, or, it's a renaissance. It's
the new octave.
The new octave. So,
wow.
Coming out of that event, Justine and I were feeling so inspired because to kind of, in a way, we've officially launched now. To open this to the community.
Same means the event the other evening here in September when we presented and discussed with about 30 members of the town of Taos.
Yeah, and to just feel like that vision is now out in the open, and to pull in the participation of all these other beings who have so much to offer is an incredible, incredible moment, and the most uplifting and magical thing. It just feels so good. Like I don't have a reference even for how amazing that is. And when I tune into like near future timelines, when these things are actually physically here on the earth, we have structures and infrastructure and people participating in all these different community aspects and these breakthrough technologies and ideas and sharings and healings together, to feel into that is just the most beautiful, magical, wonderful, comprehensively healing frequency. So part of our challenge right now then is to, as you we opened with, to suspend our disbelief, because we've been entrained into a modality of framing the world in terms of its problems and framing the world in terms of its challenges, framing our lives in terms of what we lack or what's out of balance or what's not right. And while that may be an aspect of this reality, I mean, it certainly is, there's also aspects of that framework that are hijacking our life force. And they're actually taking our creative impetus to birth this reality into material creation and flipping that source inspiration into negative projections.
I mean, it's so clear when you think about those of us, you know, who work maybe kind of more in a typical career path, and I'll even put myself in there in public education, that you have this energy, and some of us will wake up with it in the beginning of the day, and it's like, yes, the sun is here, and I am ready to express my creative energy and take care of myself today and take care of others today. And by the end of the day, where has that energy gone? You have quite literally fed a system that is a succubus. And I know that I felt it when I was a public school teacher, that I would go in feeling like, I love this. I love being with children. I'm super into physics and math, and it's joyful and interesting, and I'll make it interesting for them because I'm able to do that. And then, you know, some BS meeting happens, blah, 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 compliance, and it just all comes clear that, wow, I have just poured that creative force energy away from this vision of this blueprint of being. And it's so clear when you think about that. You think about the construct primarily of time and where you spend your time, and then where that energy goes. And that's our vision, is to hold this co-creative space together so that we can seamlessly and effortlessly step into our community and supporting each other and expressing our highest potential and gifts and offerings and creative life force amazingness. And as we step into that, we just step out of this overlay that is consuming our energy.
I wish Ginger was here right now, because Ginger did a session for me a few, might have been a year ago by now. I was really spinning out. It was in the wake of doing some really heavy duty inner work over in South Africa. And, you know, I was like, I felt this pull, this draw more than ever to create these systems that we're talking about. And like, I had so much to offer this world, and so much that was just around the corner waiting for us to engage with our creative life force and to bring into material reality. And I wasn't able to realize any of that. And I was so frustrated and spinning out in so many directions. And Ginger was like, hey, calm down. Just take a moment. I want you to go through the past year or two and list out everything that is right about this moment, and that everything that has already aligned and that you've already moved through to prepare you for what's ahead. And of course I didn't do that for like 3 months. But when I finally got to it, I was like, oh my God, I truly did not realize how much I personally had been through and how much humanity as a collective had been through in that time window. And so, you know, a huge part of bringing this vision to fruition is to just be patient with the fact that there are things that we need to heal within ourselves and within the collective that take some time, layers that we need to unwrap, distortions that we need to address before we launch these new systems, so that they don't get taken down, so that they don't self-destruct and implode like the communes did in the 60s, you know, like every example of utopian societies that were taught in school, you know, they've all collapsed, they've all failed. And so they use that in our educational model to convince us that it's impossible to have a better world. And that is so disgusting and sinful that we would literally go into an education facility to be taught that we need to accept the shitty state of the world exactly how it is.
Because it's in our human nature. It's in our human nature to perpetuate warfare. And I'm sorry, and I have interacted with all kinds of people all over the world, in ghettos, on the reservation, in third world countries, and I know this is extremely fortunate of me, and at the same time, it's my manifestation of my lens of humanity. I have never experienced violence. That is a possibility for all of us. I mean, I've been around guns, I've been around crack, I've been around heroin, I've been around all of it. I'm not a sheltered little white girl here.
Grew up in the dirty burg, Pittsburgh.
And that is so important for me, to carry that seed of knowing inside of myself that war and violence is not human nature. It is a filter that is pressed into us primarily through education and the media. And I want to bring up this beautiful analogy that an amazing community member we just met on Friday, his name is Ryan, brought up. Was you have a mountain that you're climbing, and that is your life, that is your vision. And we often take these switchbacks. And sometimes it feels like we're not making any progress, and life takes these turns, and I do all this paperwork to found a nonprofit, and then it's kind of like, why did I do that? Was that totally irrelevant and useless? Or, you go through these experiences, maybe they're extremely traumatic. You lose somebody, you lose yourself for a little while, you start to wander, you feel lost, you're confused, and you switch back, and then you start making other decisions, and other things come in, and everything changes, and then it goes back the other way where it feels like, oh man, this is a regression, what's going on? And these switchbacks are what actually bring you to that culmination point. And sure, retroactively, could you always have just skipped those things and just gone straight for the top? Yes, but that doesn't actually cultivate resilience. And resilience right now is completely essential, because just what Zane's saying about suspending your disbelief, we experience it, and I believe I've said this before on this podcast. When we told people we were going to build a house for the money that we had saved up, they didn't believe it.
Like nobody.
Nobody.
Like our everyone we talked to, close family members, close friends, like it didn't matter who we went to. They
My papa believed in us. I was
okay, so there was one. But everybody's like, you can't do that. That's not possible.
And here we are, and same thing with the school. And so we do need, and resilience is a little bit of a roll your eyes because it's kind of a buzzword right now, but when you really tune into that, we need it right now. We need to know the right moments to say yes to opportunity, and the right moments to say no to somebody's filter that's trying to suppress the vision. And again, that's where we truly see this vision having so much traction, because of that center point of grand emergence of self through inner transformation. That is the key essence that so many of the movements are missing. And that's why things fail, as they start to get all of these overlays and all of these filters, and all of this comes in. And instead of going back to yourself, your inner transformation, to see clearly, to hold the vision clearly, to have resilience and impeccability in holding that vision, even as it evolves and expands and changes beyond what you could imagine, you have to be able to return to that point and do that.
Yeah, it's funny when you're talking. The image that popped up for me was that of a river. We spend a lot of time on rivers. We're big fans of whitewater, but also flat water too. Just the ease of floating along a river, letting it carry you and your belongings down, and setting up camp, breaking down camp, being carried to a new destination the next day. If you look at a river from satellite imagery, it is not a direct path. They're very circuitous and loop in every which way, especially some of the ones here in the southwest of America. I mean, they're the squiggliest things. I mean, it's insane to look at them. And you're like, there's this part of us that's like, wow, that's such an inefficient way to get from point A to B. You look at our interstates, straight lines. Look at our flight paths. They're straight with a slight curve to account for the curvature of the earth. But, everything we do in this world, there are grids, are power grids. Or when you look at cities from space or from the air, and you see everything's built on these straight lines and grids. And that's kind of what we're programmed into, operating under, that like we should always move in straight, rigid lines. But the meander, if you've been on a river trip, the magic of going around every corner, and there's a new surprise there, a new feature in the canyon wall, a new beautiful cottonwood cove or camp, or a spring or a waterfall coming in. And that's the experience that makes it the whole trip transformation and magical. Going and floating down some straight water chute, like let's say an irrigation canal that's been constructed by humans, would be a pretty uneventful trip. It would be pretty bland. And you would not come away from it like, wow, how beautiful and transformative, So let's embrace that squiggliness. Let's embrace the circuitous pathway by which we build this new world together, because that is exactly the gift that we have to outsmart, if you will, or out-heart the inverted systems, the systems of domination and control, which try to constrict us to these linear pathways and to these uniform, homogenized ways of being and doing things and identities. And let's go for those meanders, and let's enjoy the meanders.
They must be unpredictable. In Barbara Marciniak, when she channels the Pleiadians, she just says it in such an amazing tone. Unpredictable humans. And that is so essential, because we truly are. And as these algorithms of artificial intelligence attempt to get more and more accurate in guessing our species and our next move, our capacity is to take the chessboard that we're playing on and flip it up and scatter the pieces. We're able to do that because we're non-linear. We're able to break the rules. We're able to cheat. I love cheating in games because that is organic life. Organic life doesn't truly follow rules, and rules are an overlay, and they can be fun and engaging, and then it's also fun and engaging to be like, I'm totally unpredictable. And just to really just milk the juice of the river metaphor, I would love to share another piece of that, which is that we are going downstream. It is inevitable that we are ending up in this vision that we are co-creating of new systems on planet Earth. There's an inevitability to it because we are on the river of life in the flow of time and space. And we will get downstream. You can't not when you're on the river. And at the same time, when you're above a rapid, which Zane and I love to put ourselves in this position, there is a precision line that will get you downstream in the most joyful and easiest and least scary way. And that's what we are intending to do by coalescing the energetic field when we bring people together and we get really precise and we embrace the space and let it potentize and become fertile instead of just rushing ahead of ourselves, like that frustration in us wants to do, because we're like, I'm ready for this. I'm tired of driving my stupid car, although I love all of them and I refuse to give them up. And it's that learning of how to precisely see the flow of the water. Where am I going to go? What exact strokes am I going to have? What's the angle of approach going to be? How do I need to shift the angle within the rapid and let the momentum of the river carry me? And you can get down there upside down with your shit everywhere. That's totally fine. You will get there, and there will be people to help pick up the pieces. And our goal is to really just get there upright in the boat, collected, so that we can arrive and continue downstream in an easeful and graceful way.
But it's not a straight line, right?
No, it's not a straight line ever.
When you're on a river, there's boulders and rocks everywhere, and these features that you have to navigate. And then there's also working with the currents, the primary currents of the river. If you fight the currents of the river, like let's take the Grand Canyon, it's like there's just an incomprehensibly large volume of water. I mean, the force of that water they're capturing upstream in the Glen Canyon Dam to power entire cities. I mean, that's the volume of potential energy contained within that river. If you fight that in your boat, you try to row against that current, you don't have a prayer. You're not gonna get anywhere. But if you precisely use that current and just add a little bit of momentum at the key moment, you can propel yourself exactly where you want to be, and that entire flow is moving you to your destination with precision and ease. And when we watch the real veteran rowers, the guys who have been doing this their whole lives, and they've been down the canyon, 10, 20, 100 times, it's incredible. A few strokes at the key moment, and they're right there. And, the beginners are back and forth, zigzagging everywhere on one side, then they're on the other side. And
I love boating.
That's okay when we're learning how to do something new, that it's maybe inefficient. But there's also a beautiful aspect to the curviness and the wiggliness of working with organic creation currents. And we're turning a system we're working within a system that's been turned upside down. That's what we refer to as the inversion. It's literally the organic life blueprints backwards. And so that refers to our economy, it refers to our government, it refers to our roadways, to our electrical distribution, our education, to every aspect of society or civilization that we've been birthed into. And so when we look at correcting for all of these inversions in our systems, we have to look at where can we harness the organic natural flow, the organic currents of creation as they were designed to operate, so that we're not burning ourselves at throwing energy at problems, because so much of what we're taught to do is to be contentious, to go head to head, and that's stupid. We get run over and flattened like a pancake, when instead we could take a natural current and just with a little tweak and redirection, find ourselves with a completely different social organization, completely different, resource basis, supply chain, the way that we build things. What if we grew things instead of built them? What if instead of growing whole forests of trees, clear cutting them, then chopping them into these little straight logs and like these sticks, right? Like a 2x6 or a 2x4, and then you leave them out in the elements and they get all curvy because they want to be curvy because they're organic life. And then you have to go and straighten them back out and shoot all these nails and bolts and glue them and clamp them and force them back into a straight line. And you put all the layers back together that was once a living tree. What if we just grew the frickin' building in the first place? So that's like a metaphor that might sound a little lofty, but it applies to everything that we do in this world. We're already supported by organic creation, and it is the mastermind. Its systems are perfect. Look at an ecosystem. Look at our own biology. Look at the orchestration of organic creation in its pristine state. and tell me that anything that we do in this world, in this civilization, comes close.
And I would love to bring in two things here. One is a quote from actually Jesus's teachings that Jim brought in during our meeting, that with heaven, all we need to do is see heaven. We just need to open our eyes to heaven, and heaven is here, all around us. And it's true, and that's why Zane and I are so obsessed with going into the wilderness, because Earth is heaven. This incredible act of creation in the cosmos is right here for us to be in and experience and feel and observe and smell and taste, and every sensual, amazing perception that we have is available to us in this heaven on earth. And that is just such an exquisite gift for us to be able to perceive and participate in, and is totally available. And I forget what the other thing is. Oh, yeah, here it is. This concept, I read it in a book at some point, of if you're going to cut down a tree, or you're going to take something that is alive and carve it into something else, may your creation be as beautiful as the being. And that's really hard to do. You know, you think about a tree, and it's like, for me, I'm like, wow, is that possible? Can I really create something as beautiful as that? And when I read that, the first thing that I thought of was a clarinet, because I used to play clarinet and instruments. You know, wow, music. Being able to make music is going to bring me to tears, is shockingly can be as beautiful as that tree. Paper. You can write. You can make art. And that is the capacity that underneath these overlays, underneath this system of domination and control and suppression, we rise out of it just like a trash pile that then there's a sprout in, or a mushroom growing. That is life's ability always to emerge. That is the grand emergence of life within this system of inversion. And so may us think about that as we are forcing these beams into straight lines to build our casita here so we can host people to come and stay and maybe go through the cleanse or experience some healing or just experience joyfulness and community. They feel that beauty that goes into that space and the love that goes into that space, so that those beams are able to express a level of beauty as the tree that they came from.
Yeah, and so as we learn, as we remember, I guess, who and what we are, the power of the beings that we are, and that, like, the reminders there every day in our bodies, ironically. We forget that we're living within these absolutely incomprehensibly advanced biomachines, you know, and we like, if we could be reminded of that every morning. I remember watching this video in high school in a biology class. I think it came out of Harvard or something, Harvard like medical school, but they made an incredible animation about what it looks like, what it might look like to be inside a cell. You know, if you were like a little tiny creature inside a cell, and what all these like, you know, molecular transport chains look like, and ATP production and all of these incredible processes. And it just carries your imagination so beautifully when you think that you have billions, trillions of these things with that level of complexity and precision operating within us every day, and that we can be in such a distorted headspace that, you know, we're just looking around everywhere with frustration, dissatisfaction. People are depressed, people are angry, people are miserable. They're they want to kill themselves. They want to get out of here. But we're literally living within, this like God's creation, if you will, within this absolute masterpiece of mechanical engineering, of energetic engineering, of the synthesis of light and geometries into form, into these structures that are mind-bending and that we're just beginning to understand, really, but every time we unwrap another layer, you could say the same with quantum physics or, any of the sciences. Like, as we go layer after layer deeper, we should really pause and be left with a reverence, not a hubris of like, wow, now we know what this is and now we can start manipulating the laws of creation. It's like a reverence for the fact that we're just beginning to unpack the miracle that we're living within on a daily basis. And the culmination of the great battle for humanity and the earth is either in us officially giving away our power, submitting, giving up, and saying, you win. Like, I can't battle this anymore. I don't have enough energy. I'm just going to step in, comply, and go down wherever this hellhole takes me. Or, on the other side, to reclaim your divinity. And when you reclaim your divinity and your godhood, you're reclaiming all of that divine orchestration that's operating within your body, within the planet Earth, within the celestial bodies, with the great dance of this universe, of the interstellar dance, the galactic dance.
This
and
planetary body that we are a part of.
And when we realize that this entire reality creation, this entire reality synthesis is right there at our fingertips. This was a download I got this morning in my meditation. The game is over. It's ended because we reclaim this reality field and there's no such thing as power over us. We are the power that animates this entire realm into life. But we've forgotten that, and we've been entrained into fake overlaid reality systems, into our own thought prisons, these containers that are rigid and very small and very narrow-minded. And all of you here listening to this know what it's like to interface with let's say, maybe relatives or friends who are still very much caught in that minutia, in the tiny little box that's been carved out for them, where it's you go to Costco with your mega shopping cart, you go fill the car with gas, you go to your shitty job that you hate, you go back to your little suburban house locked away from other beings, other social interaction, and you think that that's all there is. And maybe you don't even think there's life elsewhere in the universe. I mean, maybe you don't even think anything in this world is conscious, that humans are a mistake of some dead material universe that by a series of accidents created consciousness as we know. I mean, it's the most insane thing to actually face the programming head on that we've been kind of pressured into through our schooling and sciences.
And that's why it's important for us to drop down out of our heads into our hearts and really let ourselves feel. And when we do that, we bring in the divinity that Zane is just talking about, and we reawaken to our inspiration. Children want to make things. They come into this world wanting to make things. And then we train them away from that because it's too inconvenient for us to provide the space and the materials for them to make things, or we keep them from going outside because it's not safe, or they could get bitten by something, or they could get a pokey, and we have to keep them.
Pokey. A little pokey.
What?
You get a little pokey, guy.
So we keep them inside, and in school they're not allowed to draw pictures in the margins. We give them lined paper, or God forbid gridded paper, and they have to draw within the boxes and the lines and color within the lines, and we shape them into these unimaginative beings that are put into a box and are disconnected from their hearts. And it's nobody's fault. It's there's nothing wrong with people who don't feel that, because we've all been through that machine, and it's another brick in the wall. Listen to that Pink Floyd song. Really, really feel into that song. And it is so accurate around what we are talking about. And yet, when we drop back into that space of divinity through the grand emergence of self, through inner transformation and work, we regain that inspiration and we can step back into our creativity. We have had multiple people who are twice our age in the past couple months say, I think I'm ready to build my own house now. Yeah, man, do it. That's so amazing.
They've actually both been women.
And at the same time, why have we kept that from you for the past 60 years? And so let's take a moment to drop into our dream space, our vision space, and heaven that is all around us, and reclaim that inspiration and embrace your creative potential. And it doesn't have to be that you're an artist. Everybody is creative, whether it's making food or telling somebody that you love them in a special way, or having a garden, whatever that is, organizing your home. It is all creative. Dressing yourself is creative. May every act of creation that we do, which is every breath that we take, be sacred and be part of heaven, and empower you to step into that creative life force flow that we all want to participate in together. And let's do this together, because if we attempt to build a house alone as one individual, it's going to be really hard.
And we might fail.
Isolated. You might still do it. And it's just like, instead of going with that flow that we're talking about with white water and letting the current take you with just a few little strokes, you're going to work a lot harder, which is okay. That can be part of the journey for some of us. I've done a lot of things alone here too, and it feels like this moment, and it feels so good to be embraced by the community here in the past month of let's do it together. I think we're ready. I think we can play in the same sandbox and have joyfulness.
And that's why it comes back, of course, then to healing.
Yeah.
Because the thing that's prevented us from being able to function together as an integrated community or a village or whatever it may be is the wounding.
Yeah.
And these wound patterns are so deeply entrenched, and they're so insidious, and we're taught to cover them up and tell everybody, oh no, I'm fine, nothing wrong here, nothing to see here. Yeah, just fine, another day at work, fine, it's all fine.
Everything's good here, I'm good.
And that lie that we perpetuate to ourselves and to others means that the sickness within us, the traumas, the unresolved, unprocessed energy festers. And then it has to burst out at some point. And so, you start a new initiative and you're like, wow, this person or these people I'm working with are so amazing, and what an incredible thing that we're onto. And then all of a sudden, 6 months down the line, you start seeing these cracks in the structure. And it's all those different wounds that were never resolved in a container of love, and in a place where it was safe to process that emotion, where you were given permission to process it. Go, be a pain in the ass, be let
angry.
It all out, be mad.
Let it come up. And that's all wounds come from lack of feeling the return flow of love. And we have watched with Rhoda, anytime there's dysfunction in the kitchen or dysfunction in the space that's being held, it is handled with love. So let's love each other through this coalescence of our vision. And I know that I'm going to show up in ways that come from my wounding and that trigger others' woundings. And I can acknowledge that will happen with others, and that we can bring it. Let's bring it. Bring it up and out and love each other through it, because that is how we move through this. It's not through suppressing it or pretending that we're perfect and that we're never going to bring any triggered energy or upset energy or inappropriate energy to the space. You have to bring it and allow us to let it come up and out and move away from the field so that we can create more and more a space of love.
And so, in summary, why have these initiatives failed in the past? They've failed because they didn't start with healing. And when we return to these same lofty visions that humans have had for all of time, and that many of us came into this world with, seeded with blueprints for how to build new systems, the reason why those systems have not yet come to fruition is because there's more to heal. But as we consciously engage in our healing first and foremost, and then we view all those other systems as life support that allow us to step into our highest potential and purpose through our own self-realization, through our own inner access, through our own dimensional translation of the massive, incredible God beings that we are, then we will see that we can walk each other into this new world, hand in hand, in honesty and integrity. And we can correct one another when we get off course. And we can provide the safe space that we've always yearned for, that hasn't been provided in the world that we've known. And before we know it, we will have emerged into a new earth. And it's going to be amazing. It is amazing.
It is amazing. Earth is heaven. Family of snuggly otters.
Yay. Okay.
Yay.
Love you all so much. Thank you for tuning in. So excited for what's coming down the line. And just a quick reminder, your homework every morning, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, just vision your perfect life, perfect society, perfect social organization.
And tell yourself, I love you.
Eh.